What is going on, everybody? It is your boy Zary, and before we get into the video, I just want to remind everybody, if you're under level 15 and you want $10 worth of free stuff, go to your settings, go to use promo code, and type in XMGGift. You do that, you'll get $10 worth of free stuff. It helps support the channel. So if you're under level 15, make sure you're using that promo code XMGGift. Enjoy the video. YouTube family, welcome back. We are here to talk a little 70 through 61 in the All Champions ranked worst to first. So Saturday morning, we are going to get through these 10, talk about them. If you are wondering how I rank them, go back and watch the first video. And you know, I found out that if I mention liking the video in the beginning, I get more likes and get it out there and see more people. So make sure you're liking that video. And we are going to jump right into it. We are talking number 70, Snorri. Snorri used to be one of the better players in the game, but as more characters have come out and these champions have just continued to improve and improve, Snorri just continues to slide down the list. He used to be part of that Bleed Bro team with Reval, and he's not really even in a Bleed team anymore. His move kit just hasn't grown as the game has grown. And he's very viable early game if you get him and you can put him in a human team. He does some pretty decent damage in the early game. When it gets towards the end game, he starts to dramatically fall off. And he gets replaced easy once you hit like that mid game. And, you know, part of the problem is his basic. His basic really doesn't do much. He gets an accuracy increase, a 50% chance. I mean, it's a 250 damage on a basic. Okay, his AoE is where he puts the bleed on. Now, if you got like a T7, I'd love to see, like, if he got, you know, if he applied 3 bleeds or 4 bleeds, it would, you know, reduce the cooldown of this move and he might be a little more beneficial. Then his Berserk stance, you have to use this, and I don't like the way this is worded or it plays out. He gains 40 speed, which is awesome, so it helps you in the rune options. But this effect cannot be prevented or removed. Using this ability again will cancel Berserk Stance. You don't ever really want to cancel Berserk Stance. So once you use this move, you don't really use it again because he doesn't stay alive long enough. It does remove 3 debuffs, which is awesome. But again, you don't want to take yourself out of that Berserk Stance. So I don't like how it plays against each other. And his passive ability here, so he gains 30 magic armor and 30 tenacity when not in Berserk Stance. But you want Berserk Stance on, and if Freezer's on the battlefield, he receives the same buff. So I don't really care for his passive ability at all. I think this really needs a whole rework. And we talked about Hilda earlier, who has synergy with Snorri. He doesn't have synergy with Hilda. You know, he's also really squishy. Without Freezard, he's just really unusable because you need that cheat death because of how squishy he is. So that's why Snorri comes in at 70. 69, bros, we have Kelrin. And Kelrin isn't a bad defender, but there's just so many more defenders that do what he does 1,000 times better. He is very survivable, especially once you get him up to gear 12. He is one of the rare defenders you really want to try to get as fast as possible. Like him and Kiri are about the same when it comes to that. His taunting mechanism is okay. You know, tenacity increase, removes 2 debuffs, recovers health. Okay, I mean, it's not anything really to write home about. His basic ability, I really don't care for at all. You know, 180 physical damage. If the target is the lowest health in the party, this attack is guaranteed to land a critical hit. Now, critical hits play into the elf synergy. I understand that. But with the addition of Titania, he's not even the best defender in the elf race. So, really doesn't make sense there. Now, I really do like this move here, where he can inflict that armor decrease because it ramps up the damage for that elf team or whatever team you want. And this ability does give that plug and play viability for you. I mean, he does benefit greatly from being with the elves, but having that armor decrease to up the damage is pretty nice. It is on a 2-turn cooldown. So maybe bringing down on a T7, bringing down that initial cooldown with a little more damage, that would be kind of cool. And then his passive ability isn't terrible. You know, he gets more magic armor, an additional 5% for each living elf in the party. So his magic armor is very good, especially at gear 12. But it's just kind of like a blasé passive. His overall move kit just doesn't translate well to the end game, but he isn't bad, and he's just like your starting tank, starting defender, and that's why he comes in at 69. Little plug and play viability, but falls off. 68 is Venomate, and Venomate was a hard one for me to rank because I generally like Venomate. He can do some things for the party, and I really like that. But one of the reasons he's further down the list is he really benefits from his synergy with Kyra, and I can't grade on that. He can pump out some poisons, so on a poison team, he is there. You know, he has a pretty decent move kit, to be completely honest with you. He deals 300% of magic damage to an enemy, applies poison for 2 turns, and then he gets the synergy with Kyra. His poison cloud can actually do some pretty decent damage, and it poisons the target for 3 turns, you know, at tier 7. So that's pretty good. I mean, he can spread those poisons around. This one here applies crit damage, increased haste, and critical chance increase for 2 turns. And then at tier 7, he recovers 100% of that ally's turn meter. That is a really good move, kind of like Buff's move where he's swapping the turn meter. So you can guarantee someone to go again right away. That really brings up his plug and play viability. And then here deals 25% more damage for each stack of poison on enemies. So you can build him up to do some really decent damage. But that caveat of having Kyra in the party, she benefits from that a lot better. Now, my problems with Venomate start with his ruining options. He's not really very survivable at all, as we see from a lot of these starting characters, starting champions. They're not survivable. They can't stand up to these new wave of champions coming in who can deal 60,000 damage on a crit consistently. They just can't stand up to that, and that's where he falls. Also, you want him to apply those poisons. That's mainly why he's there. Now, he does increase his own damage per poison, but you know, he's really slow, so you got to really stack the potency on. You know, I have him gear 11 here, no gear 12 pieces, and I have potency sets on him with some health, and I only have him about 68% potency, and he's at 175 speed, so that's kind of where he falls. Venomate can do some things, and eventually he's not a bad one to invest in, but I just can't put him above other people on this list. Number 67 is Shaolin. Shaolin got a mini rework, and it took him from the bottom 5 characters, in my opinion, to a little bit above that. He brings a little bit more to the party, and he fits into that panda faction. Now, his real only plug-and-play viability does come from the dragon comps you can put him in, so that's kind of where that sticks, and it kind of makes it a little difficult because he really shines in raids. But on that panda team, he's pretty vital and can put out some good damage. So that's why I have him up just a little bit higher. His rework, his 7 Chef Strike, that is huge. It is a very long cooldown, but you can take down the dragon scales pretty much instantly with this move, so that is huge. On his triple serving, this is what kind of hurt his viability, but they recover turn meter, so he's feeding turn meter. He has a passive heal and regeneration, which is a good pair with Patriarch Chi now. He gains one more stack. Shaolin gains one more stack of regeneration, trying to compensate for his very poor lack of survivability, because that is pivotal that he just can't stay up. He gets a critical chance, and he's one of 2 characters here that puts on self-control. Self-control is a mechanic only found in pandas from Patriarch Chi and Shaolin. So he does bring a little bit more, but everything, he's very selfish. Everything is just him. His passive ability, I actually like his passive ability. The more health he has, the more damage he does. And then he does even more when he's at full health. So his damage potential is there. It's just he's slower character, like we talked about. You know, the ruining options become convoluted of, do you want him to go fast? Do you want him to do damage? It is there. He does heal himself on his basic, I believe. Yep. You know, if the target's health is above 50%, you recover 15% of your health. So they're trying to adjust his survivability issues with those T7s, but it still doesn't really help a lot. He is extremely squishy. But Shaolin isn't as bad as he once was. That's why I got him at 67. 66 is Mega Wheel. And Mega Wheel is a really hard one for me to rank because I think people out there love Mega Wheel or they hate Mega Wheel. The reason Mega Wheel is above like Calren and things like that is because if you do decide to sink resources into Mega Wheel, he becomes an absolute stud at Gear 12. His health and shield combination, I think, is 3rd in the game, so he is awesome. But he's one of those quasi-defender damage dealers, and it's just kind of a mess, and it doesn't play out. Now, they did rework him, and that's why he moved up the list for me, because he used to have to put on, I think it was Pain. Now he puts on Torment onto himself. And the more Torment he does, the more damage he inflicts. So after suffering a critical hit, or being healed by Xantera, Mega Wheel gains 1 stack of Torment. Plus an extra 30% chance for 1 more stack. Each stack of Torment increases armor and tenacity by 5%, increasing his survivability, so that is awesome. Now on his basic ability, this is where he increases his physical damage for each stack of Torment, but he needs Xantera to be at his max potential, so that's what slides him down. Even the huge bump in the health and shield combination and survivability going from Gear 11 to Gear 12, without Xantera on his team, he just is a subpar defender. Now, I have Hilda below him and Kelrin below him, and I had a toss-up between him and Kelrin, but I do believe because of his damage potential, even without Xantera, and he is still pretty beefy at Gear 11, that's why he's there. But unless you're planning on gearing Xantera and Mega Wheel, he's not going to be geared. As you can see, I have him at Gear 8. I very rarely use him. But when if they do this split, he's going to become vital for that second demon team. But for right now, he's no more than 66. 65 is Aurelia, the best damage dealing healer in the game, right? And she came up my list because of these conversations I'm reading on Discord of people theory crafting with Aurelia. It really does increase her plug and play viability. But she needs so much more to benefit her. She needs, to do those types of damages, she needs all of those other buffs. So she's very reliant on other people. But as a character herself, she does have very good magic damage. Her heals are very good. But she is extremely squishy and extremely slow. Gear 11, 157. So do you want her to do the damage, or do you want her to go fast to keep your team alive? Her T7s did benefit her, in the damage department. Applies debuff immunity to the lowest health ally is a huge addition. So her T7s, removes 1 debuff from each ally, kind of the quasi-dispeller. So they did benefit her, but she is just so squishy. Without a solid defender and people to raise her up, she can't be more than where she is, even with her massive damage potential. It's so reliant on everybody else, and grading her as a champion. She can do some things, especially that early mid-game, but at the end game, she's got to be end game. She has to be Gear 11, all abilities level 6, that has to happen. So very reliant on other people to increase that damage, but she still can do some things for you, and she has really good, like I said, magic damage, and her heal abilities are pretty impressive. 64 is Corcorum. And if you look here, I haven't touched Corcorum since I got Solia 7 stars, and much like Mortha, I probably should. Corcorum, when he received his tier 7s, moved up the list. He still is hard to keep alive, his speed is still low, but the fact is, when you put on that tier 7 ability, he only needs 1 stun or burned to get that extra damage, and he can really crank out some damage. But he has pretty much 0 plug and play viability. His passive ability here, he increases his potency, but then he, by 30%, and then 5% and 2 speed for each living orc in the party. So if you're not going to use him with orcs, you're not going to get that speed increase, and then it convolutes his runes. How are we going to rune this guy? Are we going to rune damage? Are we going to rune speed? He does have his AoE here on Storm, which is pretty nice. But even at tier 7, you only have a 70% chance to stun. If I'm putting in 52 legendary scrolls, I want that to be 100%. So I don't really care for that. And then he puts on Burning for the 2 turns here. And if you take that to tier 7, he does more damage based on the stacks of Burning. So he can do some things. He can fit into a burn composition, but outside of the orc faction, he really doesn't do a whole heck of a lot for you. And there's other characters out there that do what he does better. So that is why I put Corcoran at 64. Number 63 is Hera. Hear me out. You take away this leadership here, you take that away, you're not going to use Hera at all. The only reason I have her as high as I do is because of her passive ability. She gains invisible, so she can fit into that, and recovers 30% of her turn meter at the end of her next turn, right? And then this move, the Oasis of Shadows, is pretty much the only move you're going to use her for. She does gain a dodge increase, a crit chance increase, and applies both to one ally for 2 turns. All other allies gain invisible for 2 turns. So she fits well into that invisible comp, pairing well with a Kyra or a Wonder Lua. So, you know, she can do some things. But I really don't like this shred ability, because her second ability you really can't use until you use her basic 4 times. And she doesn't survive long enough, really, sometimes to get that up. And if she's been hit, she does not stealth herself. So I wish that caveat was removed. The only reason you gear Hera is for that pride leadership. And, you know, if she can do some okay damage, she can... That Oasis of Shadows is really why she's as high as she is, because she can benefit other compositions. But removing that leadership, whew, she's not as good as people think. So that is why Hera is at 63. 62 is our first half pig, Archie and Ro. Now, Archie and Ro is vital on a bleed team. But I have him so low because I really don't like how he fits into the half pig team. And for a fighter and a ranger combination, when you go into like a tournaments or something like that, you're really not going to select him, because his damage isn't as good as like a Boris or somebody like that. You know, so he's so good in that bleed comp, but his damage output is just blah. And you're so dependent on the oink, you know, so he plays so differently because of the oink and the no oink. But still, I mean, he's doing 310 physical damage, but it's only 3 enemies, and it's at random kind of, so it's you can't really focus on who you want to focus. Very selfish character where he's only giving himself a damage increase, crit chance increase, accuracy increase, and haste. Recovers 30% of his turn meter. And then additional stack for each stack of bleeding. So he's like built for a bleed team, but he doesn't really do anything else to bring people along or the other team along. Like, he gains a potency increase, but then he gains speed, but he doesn't do anything to benefit the team as a whole. So I think this is very deserved spot for him right now. But the fact that he fits into that bleed comp and is so vital bumped him up, because he does make other characters better. So, and then that damage over time of bleed can be pretty beneficial, especially that 3 hit at random can kind of get around the taunt, but it is at random. Very selfish character, and you know, that's why I got him there. So first half piggy on the list. Finishing off this list at 61 is Sharp. And when you get Sharp early, and he helps you out, and then he kind of goes to the back burner, but he's really good for raids, and he's really good at benefiting pretty much any other character you put him with. The reason he's so low is his survivability, his speed, and his overall damage output isn't fantastic. You take him up to gear 12, he does be able to do some better damage, but you take a look here, he inflicts an armor decrease on his basic, 290 on a basic, that's pretty big. His wombo combo, double, you know, you're getting that multi-hit, just increases his viability for raids, and then restores 40% of his turn meter if all 3 attacks crit. I don't like that caveat if it landed, but this second ability is just kind of like, if it lands, if you get that, it's just a bonus. But then he has his critical chance increase and an accuracy increase at tier 7 to all allies. That's big. Critical chance increase and accuracy increase is a very good buffs to put out on people. especially when you're trying to land that slow. And then in tier 7, he gives himself that 40% critical rate, chance rate. So he does some things. He can help you in early game, kind of falls off towards the mid game. But then at the end game, especially when you're trying to go into T8 or tier 9, those extra hits to bring down the scales on the dragons, the accuracy increase, so you're landing those hits. He just benefits. He bumps up the damage of any team. I think he's deserved of 61, and I think people kind of sleep on Sharp a little bit and forget that he can benefit so many teams. But because he's so squishy and because he's so slow, he's got to be in this bottom tier. So there it is, YouTube family. There is number 70 through 61. I really enjoy doing this, so you have to let me know who you think I didn't put in the right spot. Maybe I think some people are going to say Venomate should be higher, but that's just how I feel, and we can go from there. But if you're just finding me for the first time, we hit a huge milestone in the XMG YouTube channel family. We are over 1,300 subscribers. It's just unbelievable, unreal. So thank you for all the love and support. So if that bell button is red, make sure you're clicking it. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. And for my XMG family members out there, you know I love you. We will see you all in the next edition. Have a good weekend, and I love you. I'm out.